8 minutes past 8 Central African time. And as I mentioned in my intro, today marks the 30th of June, a date that has dominated headlines in recent weeks amid growing tensions over migration and calls for mass action and fears of possible unrest. Memories of the devastating July 2021 riots, which claimed more than 350 lives and caused billions of rands in economic losses and disrupted supply chains across the country, remain quite fresh. I think when you close your eyes and you go back to July 2021, you can almost see the visuals on television, people looting and just chaos across business districts across the country. Now, South Africa's business community is warning against history repeating itself. Business Unity South Africa, the country's largest organized business body, says an outbreak of violence today would further damage investor confidence. It would threaten jobs and undermine an already fragile economy. The organization is urging all stakeholders to pursue peaceful, lawful solutions while protecting lives, businesses, and critical infrastructure. And joining us this morning is Khulekani Mathe, Chief Executive Officer of Business Unity South Africa, to discuss the concerns that the private sector is raising and facing, and I think most importantly, what business believes must happen to prevent another national crisis. Khulekani, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to News and Views. Really appreciate you giving us your time.
Good morning, Sulailo, and thank you for the opportunity.
No, pleasure is all ours. I want to jump right into it. Business Unity South Africa has warned against a repeat of July 2021, the unrest that we saw unfold then. Just looking at the current state of affairs right now, what fears and concerns do you guys have, and what specific warning signs are you seeing today that prompted this intervention?
Thank you for the opportunity. And listen, the events of July 2021 were really devastating for South Africa. You have said it all in terms of the lives that were lost, the cost to business, but also in communities, simple things that we take for granted became a luxury. Just being able to go down the road and buy toilet paper because of the damage that was done. We don't want to see that again. We don't want to see situations where food supplies become disrupted and all of that. And so, as business, we've sounded the warning to say to South Africans, do not act in a way that jeopardizes and that harms people, that harms infrastructure, and that harms our economic interests as a country. We are working with government, as you've said, you've heard ministers and sort of leaders in the police service announcing that the private sector will be and is supporting efforts to maintain calm in the country because we don't want to see the scenes of July 2021.
Very, very important to note. From Business Unity South Africa's point of view, how vulnerable is the South African economy at this moment compared to where it was back in 2021?
So the economic environment globally has been a volatile one over the past couple of years, and so recovery has really been difficult. We've had events across the oceans with the United States, implementing trade rules that have had an impact here. And so we are an economy that is growing at a much, much slower pace, which is why we are experiencing these high levels of unemployment that are prompting communities to raise concerns. We can't do anything that makes that situation worse. And so that is why we say that doing and acting recklessly is, in fact, acting against South Africa communities' own interests in terms of having an economy that continues to function, grows, and creates jobs for South Africans.
I want to come back to the issue at hand here, which is a conversation on migration. From a Business Unity's point of view, I'm sure you are very central to this conversation because jobs has been one of the most overarching sore points. The conversation that foreign nationals are essentially taking jobs that should be reserved for South Africans. What are your thoughts on this? Is it an argument that is worth entertaining? What trends are you seeing within the business private sector? Is that a reality? And most importantly, how should both South Africans, the government, and maybe thirdly, I can also add, the migrant community in South Africa go about this conversation, because it's concerning. It's not going away. You can reflect back to 2006, the images that we saw in 2008, 2012. It looks like the issue of migration seems to always bubble up every couple of years. From your perspective, what's the correct way to go about it, especially for the benefit of the South African economy and for business?
So the issue of migration is not one that is unique to South Africa. In fact, across the world, different countries are dealing with the issue of migration differently. You know, the scenes in Europe of people migrating to Europe for opportunities, and protests in Europe as well around the management of migration. We also know across the Atlantic, in the US, the noises that you hear coming out of there around migration. On this continent, there are issues, in various countries, how they try to manage migration. I think what is important to note is that South Africa is the largest economy on the continent. And so it is natural that people will gravitate towards South Africa looking for opportunities. And yes, because of the slow growth of the economy, pressures have built up in communities, leading to communities believing that opportunities are taken away by migrants, rather than really seeing the impact of low growth on the economy. And so what is necessary is to have the conversation to start with, and not only have the conversation, but do something about it. I think what this is also telling us is that how migration has been managed in South Africa until now has really not been adequate. It's led to a situation where the government doesn't really have a handle on who is where doing what, holding what, whatever, which papers in the country. So all of these are legitimate things that need to be addressed, and hopefully this helps us to do something about it. Make sure that we have our laws tightened so that people who are here holding the right papers are assured that they are protected, there's not going to be harm towards them, but also that communities do not feel the need to take the law into their own hands. What we want is to see our government really being in control. We want to see the hand of government showing that this country is governed. Lawlessness, whether by South Africans or by illegal immigrants, will not be tolerated. And finally, now that we have thousands, and I'm going to keep it to thousands, of migrants in South Africa holding all manner of papers, we need to make sure that the government is able to root out corruption and make sure that those who hold papers that are legitimate, and that those who need to be deported and all of that, we need to act humanely towards fellow human beings, fellow Africans. We need to make sure that we do not act in a dehumanizing way. We need to make sure that there is still respect for human life. There's still respect for human dignity.
Very, very important. I want us to take a quick break. When we come back, I'd like us to, continue the conversation around stability and the rule of law, and why that is so important for a flourishing economy. And most importantly, how do we then balance legitimate public concerns that South Africans are making over migration with the need to continue, as you mentioned, to protect constitutional rights and human rights and treating people with dignity. So we'll continue the conversation after the short ad break.
It's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying, or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
Right now, over 150 million children around the world are orphaned, facing hunger, hardship, and uncertainty. With Islamic Relief's Orphan Sponsorship Program, you can provide a child with access to education, nutritious food, essential healthcare, and a safe home. Your sponsorship is not just support, it's hope, security, and a brighter future. Be the reason an orphan child smiles again. Sponsor an orphan today with Islamic Relief.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Are you banking with convenience, transparency, and flexibility? With Al Baraka Bank's transactional banking account, you can enjoy convenient everyday banking designed around your needs. Benefit from zero fees on point-of-sale transactions and manage your banking easily through Al Baraka's secure mobile banking app and internet banking platform. From everyday payments to managing your personal or business banking, Al Baraka makes banking simple, transparent, and convenient. Visit albaraka.co.za to learn more. Al Baraka, your partner bank. Al Baraka Bank Limited is an authorized financial services and credit provider.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Minutes past 8 Central African time, and I'm still in conversation with Business Unity South Africa CEO Khulekani Mathe, and we're having a conversation around the state of South Africa's economy, the images of the 2021 unrest, and also the reality of present-day South Africa, the conversation around immigration, and South Africans today rallying up and saying, well, we're going to go out to the streets and we're going to send a very, very strong message to the government, to the relevant authorities about migration. Khulekani, thank you so much for staying with us. Really, really appreciate it. Before we went on to the short break, I mentioned that I want to talk about how business often speaks about, stability and the rule of law and how that helps the economy. Another conversation then will be, how do you balance legitimate public concerns of a migration that South Africans are making with the need to protect constitutional rights and prevent vigilantism? Where do you meet all of those at one point to make sure that everyone comes out of days like this unscathed, especially from business point of view?
So I think it's important to note that economies of today are very, very interconnected. We do not operate as islands. We produce goods in South Africa that we sell and export to different parts of the world. The biggest market that we have as South Africa is the African continent. Because of proximity, we can get our goods into Africa, or into the rest of Africa, I should say, relatively quicker than we can get, and cheaper than we can get them to faraway places. If we act in a way that pretends South Africa is an island, we are making it difficult to move our goods on the continent. That will further harm jobs in the country, because if we can't sell products, it means we can only produce very, very limited products. So that will harm us. Of course, we also have South African companies that are invested on the continent, employing jobs and earning profits that they bring back to South Africa. All of that will be threatened if we act in a way that pretends we are an island. We are not. And so when we talk about stability, it's stability for our own sake in South Africa, because nobody wants to live in a country that is unstable. But it's also stability because it's important for our business interests as a country outside. It's also stability for those who want to come and invest in South Africa to create jobs. They need to look at South Africa from wherever they are. Unfortunately, they only see South Africa through pictures and images that are beamed on television. They need to look at this and say, here's a country that functions, well governed, etc. But if there's chaos in the street, things burning, buildings trashed, those trashes that you see, when a window is broken, it's more than just a window that's broken. It's South Africa's image in the world. When tires are burnt on the street, it's not just that tire burning on the street. It's the image of South Africa really being tarnished across the world. We cannot afford that. It is our own interest. It's not some foreigner. It's about us. It's about this country. And if South Africa functions, South Africa works, we are the largest economy on the continent. Therefore, the continent will also do well. So we mustn't forget that we're not an island. We are an interconnected, global economy.
Has Business Unity South Africa implemented any kind of contingency plans in anticipation of possible disruptions today? I think one thing that we always reference when we talk about July 2021 is the fact that there was a lot of unpreparedness, whether it was from the police services, whether it was from intelligence, just generally, everyone was caught with their pants down. And this time around, I think a date was put forward. There was a lot of planning that could have gone around it. As a BUSA, have you done anything different this time around to make sure that you're prepared? You are, whatever eventuality that may arise, you are ready for it.
So let me correct you slightly. BUSA is a political party. We are BUSA, Business Unity South Africa. But to your point,
yes.
So to your point, I think that as a country we are better prepared this time around. We do not have fears that there's going to be suddenly chaos. We've been engaging with government, and government has assured us that they are prepared, and we've had the statements that government has been making. But as the business community also, we've been partnering with government in different ways. We've made sure that we share information with government about where our businesses are in terms of malls and all of that, so that we have those and that infrastructure, which is an economic infrastructure, well protected. We also have the private security industry that has come on board to support, not to take over the responsibilities of the South African Police Service, but to support. So I think together with business and government leading, I think there's not going to be chaos. As it happens, I'm at my office and I look outside the window. I don't see chaos, and we expect things to stay that way. And that's what we want. We want a country where there is a government in charge that makes sure things continue to function.
Very, very important. Going back to July 2021, have you fully quantified the damage of those riots? And are there some sectors that you feel were most affected, and from that point onwards to now, how has the recovery been?
So immediately in the aftermath of July 2021, you would have had a number which was 50 billion rand. That was just quantifying the cost of the buildings that were trashed, etc., etc., etc. But the cost is much bigger than that in terms of the jobs that were lost, and some of them lost permanently or at least for an extended period. The cost that was done to the investment attractiveness of South Africa, which means that we have foregone investments that would have come into the country because of the sins of July 2021. So those are some of the things that are difficult to put a number to. But what we do know is that the time it took for us to just get back to where we were before July 2021 tells us that the damage was really, really massive. Even if we can't put a number, my own estimate would be that it ran into hundreds of billions of rands, in addition to the 50 billion that was quantified immediately in the aftermath of July 2021.
There we go. I think we're going to leave it on that note. Khulekani Mathe, thank you so much for joining us from BUSA, Business Unity South Africa. And of course, really
Thank you
appreciate your
for
time. Thank you so much.
correcting. Thank you.
There you go, Khulekani Mathe, Chief Executive Officer of Business Unity South Africa, sharing the business sector's perspective on today's heightened tensions and why preventing unrest is not only a security priority, but also an economic imperative. After the break, we'll be turning our attention to security in general. We'll be looking at South Africa, and I think most importantly, our law enforcement agencies and how over the years they've seemingly lost their bite. They've lost, I think, their their ability, to manage, things like riots and then violence that breaks out. Scenes from 2021 July still again being the focal point of the conversations that we'll be having today. And we'll be having a really, really interesting conversation with someone that's a very, very good friend of the show, Chris Hating, Executive Director at the Center for Risk Analysis, and he'll be taking us through all of that. So yeah, it's a very, very eventful day. I think majority and bulk of today's show will be focusing on the instability that might unfold, and it's a situation that I don't think any of us would like to see, because I think, as Khulekani mentioned there, the world is watching at this point. They are waiting to see how South Africa and South Africans are going to be responding to this day. Is it going to be painting a picture of anarchy? Is it going to be painting a picture of a country that is crumbling onto itself? Or are we going to be setting an example of what South Africa truly represents, which is Ubuntu, and sitting around a table and sorting out our differences, which has been the DNA of this country. It's what South Africa is built upon. So, yeah, interesting times ahead. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with you after this.